an elite army of 100,000 men, a pitch-black night, and an entire military force literally annihilating itself over a barrel of alcohol. Welcome to this explainer, where we're dropping immediately into the chaotic darkness of 1788 to witness one of the most mind-boggling historical catastrophes ever recorded. Picture this, an unstoppable Austrian juggernaut. We're talking 100,000 highly trained soldiers on the march. The sheer scale of this force is meant to strike absolute terror into the hearts of their enemies. It's basically a moving city of weaponry, cavalry, and artillery, all advancing with a single, unified purpose. But here's the crazy part. Their greatest enemy wasn't an opposing empire waiting for them on the battlefield. Instead, in a massive twist of fate, they turned their terrifying arsenal entirely on themselves. They triggered a total, devastating collapse. And it all started with, well, a few barrels of schnapps. Section 1. The ultimate self-inflicted defeat. So the tense setup begins in September 1788. The massive Austrian army is marching out to fight the Ottoman Empire. As night falls, an advanced scouting party of cavalrymen rides out to secure a river crossing near the town of Karánsebes. Now, they're fully expecting an ambush, but instead of finding enemy forces in the dark, they stumble upon some local merchants. Relieved, the cavalrymen buy several barrels of schnapps and start drinking pretty heavily by the riverbank. The night is quiet, but yeah, it definitely won't be for long. Section 2. A dispute over schnapps. The spark of this unprecedented tragedy gets lit when a second group of soldiers enters the scene. A contingent of Austrian infantrymen crosses over the river, spots the cavalrymen, and naturally demands a share of the alcohol. But the drunken cavalrymen flat out refuse. In a super hostile, alcohol-fueled reaction, they actually construct defensive barricades around the barrels to keep the infantry out. I mean, you can guess what happens next. Tensions boil over in the darkness, shouting matches begin, and a frantic, massive fistfight erupts between two factions of the exact same army. Section 3. The deadly misunderstanding. As fists are flying in the dark, the domino effect just rapidly accelerates. The noise of the brawl echoes through the night, escalating from a drunken dispute into sheer contagious terror. And then, the situation goes from bad to fatal. During the chaotic brawl, a panicked soldier fires a musket shot straight into the night air. In all the confusion, someone hears that gunshot and mistakenly screams out, "Turks! Turks!" Believing that a surprise ambush by the Ottoman forces is underway, the drunken brawl instantly transforms into a massive stampede of fear. Both the cavalry and the infantry abandon the river and flee in absolute terror back across the water. But put yourself in the shoes of the massive main army waiting in the camp. It is pitch black. Suddenly, they hear a gunshot, lots of screaming, and they see a tidal wave of frantic men rushing wildly toward them. Obviously, the main camp assumes the absolute worst, that a massive enemy charges upon them. Section 4. A fatal language barrier. Now, what's really interesting here is that this immense army wasn't a monolith. It was a complex patchwork of troops pulled from totally different regions of the empire. You had soldiers speaking German, Hungarian, Slavic, and Romanian. In broad daylight, this diversity was a strength. But in the pitch-black chaos of a perceived midnight ambush, this language barrier made communication practically impossible. And this perfectly illustrates the tragic turning point. In a desperate attempt to restore order, German-speaking Austrian officers began screaming, "Halt! Halt!" into the dark. But the non-German-speaking soldiers, who were already paralyzed by the fear of an Ottoman ambush, fatally mistranslated those shouts. Through the roar of the panic, they honestly thought they were hearing the Islamic war cry, "Allah! Allah!" Section 5. Total camp collapse. So, the crucial point is that any remaining semblance of order completely vanished in an instant. Absolute madness and blinding paranoia took over the massive camp. Believing they'd been completely infiltrated and surrounded by the Ottomans, different Austrian regiments started firing their muskets blindly at shadows, which tragically were actually each other. The panic escalated to the point where they literally deployed their own heavy artillery, blasting cannons directly into their own camp. The noise was deafening. The mighty Austrian army disintegrated, retreating in total bloody disarray, suffering thousands upon thousands of self-inflicted casualties. And the craziest part? There wasn't a single enemy soldier in sight. Amidst this apocalyptic scene, the deafening roar of cannons, the screaming, the utter disintegration of a 100,000 man force, you really have to ask, what on earth happened to the supreme leader of this army? Where was the emperor while all this was happening? Well, the terror was so incredibly contagious that even the emperor's elite personal guard succumbed to the panic. To escape the lethal, blinding chaos created by his very own men, the emperor himself was forced to run for his life, actually fleeing into a nearby lake just to survive the night.
Section 6. The Empty Battlefield.
The dark tragicomedy of that evening is totally solidified by what happened in the aftermath. Once the smoke finally cleared and the sun came up, it actually took a full 2 days for the actual Ottoman army to finally arrive on the scene. They'd been marching for days to meet the Austrians and what they assumed would be this grueling, epic clash of empires. But instead of facing a 100,000-man Austrian juggernaut, the Ottomans walked into a chilling scene of complete desolation. They found the heavy artillery abandoned, the barricades broken, and thousands of casualties scattered across a completely deserted, bloodied camp. The Austrian army had literally defeated itself for them. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this provocative thought. We just saw how the contagious, deadly nature of panic and a few misheard words in the dark could bring down an entire military empire. It kind of forces you to wonder if a formidable 100,000-man machine can completely destroy itself from the inside out over a barrel of alcohol and a language barrier. Just how fragile are the massive, complex systems we rely on every single day? Something to think about.